All right, welcome everybody to the Here Brotherhood podcast. Today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Mark something Smith. Is it America? Because
don't you have to be dead though before you're a legend?
that's
Not in this
question.
case.
Oh, good. Okay.
There are living legends, and you, my friend, you, my friend, are one of them.
All right,
congratulations.
Why not?
So, Mark Smith, tell us, who are you?
What does that even mean?
I know. That's a big
nice
story.
intro, John.
Give us the brief, the backstory. Where you come from? Who's your family? All the things. We're in a class. It's the first day of school, and this is your intro.
So really quick, part of the intro. Sorry to your listeners, my voice. I've got really really nasty respiratory disease. Not contagious, boys. But
we're like so scooting back.
No. So I got lung cancer when I was a teenager, and
wow.
I've had like 50 surgeries on my airway, and so my voice just gets worse. So I apologize for anybody who has to hear me cough or wheeze, but this is just who I am. I'm a little self-conscious about it, but therefore that's how I introduce myself. Man, it's just like a window into my self-loathing. No, I'm honestly really normal guy who's actually had a very interesting life, but not because I'm an interesting person.
Doubt it.
No, I mean, honestly, it's like, so I was born in Southern California.
Too bad the listeners didn't see that.
Oh, that's right.
They'll see it on the video.
Okay,
Don't
watch
worry.
the video. No, born in Southern California, late 70s, awesome family. Dad's an attorney, mom's a stay-at-home mom. Couldn't have asked for a better life. Had, I think, five or six brothers and sister, and plus my family also took in a bunch of kids, and so there was just, it was a wonderful, wonderful life. Thought I'd be an attorney, realized I didn't want to be one, so naturally I got into sales, and had a nice sales career, a nice leadership career, and tried to retire a few years ago, and then war broke out in Ukraine, so my wife was like, hey, we should give away all of our money, and so now I'm unretired, and
wow,
just loving life, and I don't know what I mean.
Yeah,
I have a story for everything, but that's like the general gist of who I am.
Will you? That has always fascinated me. The story of Ukraine, and you were living in Italy.
Yeah.
At the time,
Yep.
Is that right? Just give us a brief overview of that. I would love for
I mean, honestly,
people to hear
just
that.
based on I've listened to your podcast. This could actually probably be a long conversation, but it was what was the year? It was like 2020. I don't even know what year it was.
2021, 22.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And just woke up one day, and my wife and I were like, our life's pretty great. We love our house, love our neighborhood, love our friends, love my son's school. Like, there's nothing wrong with our life, but maybe we should completely uproot and like move to a foreign country until our son is maybe in middle school or maybe in high school. And we always wanted to retire like halfway in Italy. And we thought, well, why don't we just try it right now? So we literally got rid of everything we owned within 60 days, to the point where a couple of days before we moved, we just told friends, come over, and whatever's left, just take it. We put everything left in like an 8x8 storage unit, just stuff that, mementos and whatnot. And then we got a home in Rome, and plan was to find a nice country home in probably Tuscany, and, be super cliche, and it was great. And then the war broke out, and we knew that there's a good chance the war would break out. But then it did, and naturally, when war breaks out close by, you should go home to America. And we decided to do the opposite, and we drove straight to it. So, but it was just amazing. What basically happened is I was on a walk with my little dog, and I was thinking, my life is amazing. We chose to come here. We have the money to be here. We live in an amazing townhome in the center of Rome, and people speak English here plenty, and there's nothing wrong. And yet I'm still a little bit awkward. It's a foreign country, right? What would it be like if I was forced to leave my home due to war? So I got home from walking the dog and said, honey, what do you say we pick a family and just like pay to relocate them and cover them for a couple of years? She's like, awesome. So 5 days later, she had located like 45 families. and bought out a bed and breakfast in right outside Bucharest, Romania. And then we ditched our house in Rome and we got like one of those big Mercedes Sprinter vans. And we spent the next who knows how long just taking care of refugees out in the Romanian countryside and then in Bucharest and whatnot. And it was the greatest thing ever.
That's
and
incredible.
we only stopped because we sort of got deported.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't stay there forever.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, can we put a lot of money in your country taking care of refugees. Can we stay? And they're like, no.
Really?
Wow.
I'm like, really? And they're like, well, I mean, you can go through this long process. And I was like, is there nobody I can give an envelope of money to? And they're like, so anyways, so we ended up back in the United States, and then my wife kept doing the work for about another year, and then, eventually ran out of money. So, but we still in contact with the refugees. Like,
cool.
Easter, like the other day, we were all talking to each other, and because they have the best Easter ceremonies. And anyways, the reason that story I think matters, like to this podcast, is because, if you think what would life be like if you could retire, live in Rome with your wife, your son, who's like your best buddy in the world, your tiny little dog. And I can tell you that it wasn't that great. It really wasn't.
Right.
There's no purpose to it.
Right.
And so I think I would have lasted another month in Europe before thinking this doesn't make any sense. The easiest, greatest times in the last several years of my life have been living out of a backpack, driving refugees, not speaking a single word of their language, and having purpose.
Yeah.
Never been happier, and I miss it every day.
That's incredible.
great.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
story. That's remarkable. And I think, you nailed it. Before you even said it, I was like, it's purpose, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I guess I'm curious now, like, you had that very purpose driven experience, and then you came back. How are you finding purpose now?
I'll tell you, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Last couple of years have not been the most enjoyable for me.
Hmm.
That's not to say they haven't been, successful in the way that we normally judge success, right? But there's not much to that.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, you got to keep in mind, I won like the privilege lottery when I was born. There's really nothing in the way, other than my health issues. There's been nothing in the way of me being successful in life, and so my life was about not screwing up this gift I had, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not that hard to have success, but success doesn't mean that you have purpose. And one of the most, you guys have talked about an epidemic of loneliness. I personally don't see that as the issue. I really don't. I see there is an epidemic of a lack of purpose
Mhm.
and a lack of connection between the work that we do and the food that goes in our children's belly. When you look at the last several thousand years, when has isolation not been the norm for men?
Mm.
Literally for thousands of years. We lived rural agrarian societies. Sure, there were some castles you lived in or some, community centers you lived in, but most of us, or most of humans, we lived on a plot of land and we lived with our spouse and our children. And we had no friends. We might have seen people at the local gathering, but we had no friends. Men didn't have any friends. They had a wife and they had kids. But look what we did. We got up when the sun rose and we went out
Went to
into the
work.
field. First of all, our wife got up probably and got us something to eat. And then we went out in the field and we worked. And maybe our kids joined us when they were old enough. And we worked all day long doing the most menial labor in the world. And then we brought it home. We brought our labor home in the form of food or whatnot. And our wife was there, and she had been keeping the kids alive literally during the day. She had been feeding them. She had been preparing food, and she had been helping to cultivate the work we did out in the field. And then we ate a meager food, and then there was no light, and we talked as a family. We went to bed. We did that every day for our entire lives. And we had total purpose. And life was great. But we had no friends. There was so
No, that's an interesting thought. I haven't.
no, but you had a full connection.
Yeah.
It's like, well, How could you do that work? Isn't that the worst work in the world? Would it be?
No.
Would it be? Going out into a field with your mule and your hoe and your work goes directly into your family's belly. And then when you get home, your wife is not in petticoats. This isn't like antebellum South. Your wife is as dirty and sweaty and tired as you are. So you see her as an equal partner because she's been working like crazy all day long. And your work that you produce, she takes that and creates something for you and the kids. And you eat it and you talk a little bit and maybe you play your fiddle or whatever, bagpipe, and you go to sleep and you wake up and you do it again.
Yeah.
And something tells me if you go back in time, you're not going to find an epidemic of depression back then.
Yeah.
Because there was a great connection between our labors and what it did for someone that we cared about. And then you look at, sorry, I'm probably talking more than you do, John.
No,
I'm just saying that because somebody made fun of you on a podcast. No, but then you look at it and say, well, what are the expectations of men? Expectations of men, even 200 years ago, 150 years ago, was it what? Retire at 60? No, never retire. Work till the day you die.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully you have your family on your land as well. So grandma and grandpa get to work a little bit less and sit on the porch a little bit more and tell some more stories. But you are not expected to retire at 60 and travel the world and buy a Jaguar. But now you're a loser if you don't, right? Right? And you weren't expected to marry for true love. You married, it was a social contract with a woman hopefully you really liked, but you understood that you entered a social contract to create something together. And you saw each other work crazy hard. And that respect grew every single day. Were you expected to take her out for an expensive anniversary dinner or Valentine's or birthday? No. You might have helped her buy a yard of fabric to make her own dress once every 3 years. Now we have so much that's expected of us as men. And then the work that we do, we now understand, I think, that the work we do is not that needed in the world. And that's, I mean, I don't mean to depress your listeners, but like, no, think about it. You had to work the land to survive and to eat. Now, a lot of us have jobs and we get treated poorly at that job. We might get paid a lot of money. We get treated poorly. And then out of nowhere, we lose that job. And in previous economies, you just get another one. And hopefully you get treated better. Well, now we're in this specific time where you get treated poorly at the job that really doesn't matter. You're out of work and you try to get another job that doesn't really matter. And now they say no. So I think what we're seeing is we are in the second or third generation of at least American men living lives that we didn't live for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, retirement wasn't a thing until 70 years ago. We didn't live very long. There's certain things we weren't expected to do. But I don't think it's isolation. I think it is a disconnection between our labor and what our labor produces for the people that we love or for society. And that is what I think we're missing right now. Yeah. And I have no idea how I went on that rant.
I loved that. That was very fascinating. And one of the questions that I'm interested in is, where do you think it went wrong? When do you think it started to change so drastically? Because, I mean, what you're painting is so different than what we're living today. And it wasn't
everyone should know.
And it wasn't that long ago.
I don't have a psychology degree. I'm like making this up. No, but think about it. So, okay, the question was like about like the purpose and whatnot when we were in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, we're living in the most gorgeous little apartment in downtown Rome. I have my dream dog, my dream wife, my dream child, and I'm getting depressed. And now I've dealt with clinical depression for 25 years. But this is different. This wasn't I'm feeling depressed in terms of like my illness. I'm feeling like, what am I doing? Well, it's because I had no purpose. Well, I had already made the money that was going to pay for my family to eat, right? Well, so what do? We head to the Romanian countryside and we hang out with people that don't speak our language. I have no friends and I'm so stinking happy. and I'm doing menial labor. My wife's doing all the interesting things. I am driving a van 25,000 kilometers in a 4-month period. I'm literally just driving.
Yeah.
And I've never been happier.
Yeah.
Because my driving went to pick up a refugee and her children and take them over here.
Yeah.
And then when my wife said, we need to go get more supplies, I would go get those. Like, I did nothing interesting for a year. And I crave that every single day.
So in this case, the labor, you were talking about the purpose of the labor, like sustaining your family or whatever. In this case, it was a service, right? I mean,
Yes.
So getting lost in that service was where you found meaning and purpose.
Yeah. See, I don't know if it's so service, paid work, whatever it may be. The closer you connect your efforts, your blood, your sweat, your tears to a result for someone you love, which could be your family, your friends. It could be a stranger.
Yeah.
Because you know that person is a human. You love humans. The closer you connect your activity with a positive outcome for somebody, the more fulfilled you will be. And I don't say happy. Now, because I don't think happy is something that we should be striving for as a constant state.
Yeah.
I think we should be striving for purpose, usefulness, and I think that we will have happiness, but we will also have times of downright misery, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. But you have to connect your labors with an outcome, or you find that there is no purpose. And you can buy things to fill that gap, right? I there's one guy that sold his company for like $550 million, and he was able to buy away his loneliness for like 5 years. He was, and he was honestly one of the most outgoing, gregarious humans in the world. 5 years later, he's like, "This is miserable." So he went and got a job. He went and started running a company again, not even a good company. Dude has $500 million in the bank after taxes, and he's just like, "Yeah, I'll go run a small company," because in that company. Is still, I don't want to embarrass him, so I won't say the name, but that company is still small.
Yeah.
But when you ask him what he does for the company, I've got like 50 employees, and they're all extremely happy. And my job is just to make sure that they have jobs and they're happy. And I've never been happier.
Wow.
So I think you have to connect your work to an outcome.
Yeah, and find that you have something to contribute. You are making an impact. There is purpose. There is some visible, tangible benefit.
Yes.
And I think so. I've shared this a couple times, this story, so I won't go into all of it, but I took a break from work for a couple months, and I totally felt the initial honeymoon stage of like, this is amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, like, and then it fades away, and then you start to go, what am I actually doing?
How long did it take for it to fade away for you?
So I left in September, and it was January, February of the next year. So it was like 4 or 5 months, something like that.
How many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have 1 kid.
Yeah.
So I think if I had 5, I would have lasted longer. No, but I had 1.
Right.
My son's like, so you had more to handle.
Yes.
And so I think the honeymoon period lasted longer.
Yeah. And we had the holidays coming up.
Yeah.
There were all those things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't surprise me one bit that 3 months in, you're just like, what am I doing?
Yeah. And that's what segued me into doing this work of reconnecting, helping men reconnect with their purpose. That was one of the first things that my wife and I developed, was this guide essentially for how to help people really get clear on what are their core values, what are their guiding principles, and what is their purpose.
Yep.
And we did it for ourselves, and then sharing that with others. It was very fulfilling work, purposeful work.
Yep.
But I shy away from saying my purpose is to help other people find their purpose, because I think we need to have our own purpose. That's not just, you know what I mean? But that's part of it. But then we got into doing this men's work and doing men's retreats, and you talk about proximity to seeing, having a meaningful connection with people, or seeing them do meaningful work, seeing them have breakthroughs. I mean, that was so fulfilling that I just couldn't get enough of it. I mean, I did a retreat every month for the following year, And that's what really kept me.
I can't wait to go to one as soon as you don't make me get in cold water and sleep in the dirt.
Those ones are...
My wife's like, when are you going to go? And I'm like, when they don't make me get in cold water and sleep in the dirt.
At the retreats, we don't do the cold plunges. I will say that. So just,
All right.
if that helps.
All right. So
if that helps, what are you doing next weekend in Arizona?
Okay,
not going to your retreat.
All right, so but I want to get into though.
Yeah.
You've written some interesting content, some interesting articles, and you've come on our app a couple times and just dropped these like amazing messages. Yeah, no, and they're
I've had to
very
ask
insightful.
for clarity on a few of them, which has been fun.
Yeah.
So what are John? You mentioned one or two that you wanted to touch on. I can't remember off the top of my head. What were those?
Yeah, well, one of them that I still think about often is one about forgiveness.
Okay.
And so backstory, I wrote an article, I think it was after one of our morning huddles, Monday morning huddles. And we talked about forgiveness. And at the end of it, I had this feeling, it wasn't something that was lingering. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm having a moment because there's a full circle moment from last night.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, where I
have the moment.
I know. So, yeah. So I felt like I needed to forgive somebody.
Sure.
And I wrote a post about it. And then as a response, Mark wrote an article on his Substack about what I wrote. And part of it, at first I wasn't sure what the tone was. Because...
Why? What has my tone ever not been? Well, everyone thinks I'm a mean guy.
No. I didn't know if you were calling me out or if you
No.
Well, but I realized very quickly that you weren't.
No.
That it was, and actually by the end of it, I thought, man, my mind has been expanded to going from forgiveness to pre-forgiveness, or what do you call it?
Well, pre-forgiveness is for family and for loved ones but what I say, I mean, I haven't like put it into some sort of like program, although I do have an outline now.
Nice.
Somebody made one for me. It's
You're
really
kidding.
great. Yeah, it's Roadhouse themed. But what I would say is, I remember when you wrote the article, and it was awesome. It was about you needed to forgive somebody, and I could tell it was heavy for you. And my thought was, that is so awesome that he did that. But I wonder if he knows that there's a better way, which is to never feel like you have to forgive somebody. And I know that sounds like, I'm not trying to be Confucius or Gandhi or something. I'm saying this is a real thing. Like, I was a miserable human. And I mean, I forget the years. I get them all confused at this point. But I'm young. I'm decent looking. I'm doing fine in my career. I have a young, gorgeous wife. No kids yet, but I have a loving family. We live in La Jolla, California. We have amazing friends. And I am a miserable human. And I couldn't figure out why. And then, I saw David Bednar's, talk on and none shall be offended. And it hit me like a bolt of lightning. It was like, wait a second. I think the reason I'm miserable all the time is because I don't understand why the world hasn't like knelt at my feet. I don't understand why people can't, I was always offended. I was always annoyed, and I realized that's such a loser mentality because number one, are people really trying to offend me? And number two, why can't I just be strong enough to just not let somebody offend me? So I decided I needed to practice this. So I decided that what I would do is if I ever felt offended, because everyone feels offended, I would ask myself a simple question. Do I think this person tried to offend me? If the answer was no, again, it took thousands of times of practice over many years. I would just go, oh, okay, I'm not going to take offense. If I think they tried to, I would say, oh, can this person hurt me? The answer is no. Okay. I might need one to distance myself from that person in the future, but I'm not gonna get offended. I'm gonna move on. And doing that allowed me to just, I never had to forgive anybody because 999 out of 1,000 times, the person isn't trying to harm you and can't harm you. Now, when it comes to pre-forgiveness, that's with my wife. That's where I started with my wife, my family. And that is, I love this woman. I know she loves me. We're a good match, I don't care if she even does try to harm me. I'm just simply going to forgive anything she does before she does it. I will never ask her to apologize to me. And I got to tell you, that's the best way to go about things. Is because my wife, she'll admit, sometimes I say something that's not kind. Yeah, but I never ask for an apology. I don't want one. I don't want an apology. When you tell your wife you need to apologize, you're saying you owe me something. I'm above you right now. When your wife does the same, like, I'm above you. You owe me something. I don't want my wife to owe me anything. I don't want my son to owe me anything, my family to owe me anything. So I just simply decide that with my family, my loved ones, that includes, the family you choose, your deepest friends, I just simply pre-forgive them. Now, how do I keep that from making me a very weak person? Well, when I ask myself, did somebody try to harm me? And the answer is yes. And then I ask myself, can they harm me? And the answer is yes. Then I have a release valve. And that is, I do everything in my power to absolutely destroy them. No, I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. When somebody is trying to hurt me or my family or my loved ones, or a vulnerable person, and they have the ability to do that, I will not stop until I have ended their ability to do that and more. That's my release valve. Because if I didn't have a release valve, I think I would go crazy. And they deserve it. But if you really think about it, if you think about all the times in your life, take that friend that you had to forgive, anybody you've had to forgive, if you kind of do a retrospective and you say, all right, did they try to hurt me? Maybe they did. Could they really have? Not really. Okay, then I probably just never had to let it get this far. If they did try to hurt you and they could, you shouldn't forgive them. You should wreck them. But my guess is this isn't the case, right?
Right.
But if you look back at all your life,
yes.
Well, but the amount of times that you actually need to take offense and act is very, very small.
Yeah.
And you will have times you look back and say, I should have acted. Yeah, sometimes you actually should have taken offense and taken steps to end that person's ability to harm people. It happens rarely, but I absolutely still spend some of my time actively stopping people from their ability to harm vulnerable people. I just don't waste any effort when the person isn't trying to harm me or can't harm me. They're just like nothing. And if they're family, they're not nothing. They're everything to me. But I already forgave them.
Yeah, I think this idea of taking offense, it's interesting because I think what it does is just exposes our own insecurities or vulnerabilities or our own wounds. And so if I'm self-conscious about something and you make a comment that's about something I'm self-conscious about, well, then I feel like you hurt me, right?
Yep.
But if it's something that I have never felt self-conscious about and you made a comment about whatever it is about me, I would just be like, what are you talking about? Yep. Like it doesn't harm me because I'm not already wounded there. And so to me, that idea of not taking offense is as much about kind of questioning the other person, but also an introspection of why did that offend me? If it was the case, like, why did I want to take offense of that? Oh, it's because I have an insecurity here. And that's something that I now get the opportunity to work on, to maybe find some healing, maybe find some truth, no longer believe the lie. And so to me, that's an interesting exercise. And then I hear a lot from you, this sort of, this protective spirit as well of like, you're not just like, oh, anybody can do anything they want, but it's like, no, I'm actually going to take this role of like warrior protector when somebody truly is out to cause harm. And I think that's a very masculine role that we can step into, right?
And I think you have to have that, or else people will take advantage of the pre-forgiveness.
Yes.
Without knowing that there's that 1% chance that you're going to destroy them, that there's that threat, then people will take advantage of that. Because that was one of my questions. Hearing this is, well, won't people take advantage of that? Then you become this nice guy that's always going to forgive everybody. But no, that there's a clause.
Well, you know how I feel about
will
nice
destroy
people.
you.
If you call me a nice guy, I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, that's the biggest insult. Like, I do not want to be a nice guy.
Yeah.
like what, you know,
Well, because what does that mean? Yeah.
well, so I just asked people, say that's crazy. Why can't you be nice? Okay, think about all the times when you have described a coworker and you've started by saying, "Oh, he's a nice guy." How many times have you ever followed that up with, "and extremely good at his job"? 0. Okay. What I want someone to say, if they say, "Oh, you know Mark Smith?" Yeah. Well, tell me about him. Oh, he's genuine. He's generous. He's honest. He works hard. He's a great father, great husband. Da 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 da. Is he a nice guy? Oh yeah, he's fine. Yeah, I want it to be like the 17th thing that somebody say about him. And even then, I don't want them to say nice. I want them to say I'm kind or I'm.
Yeah.
I don't want to be known as a nice guy. I don't.
Yeah.
The nice guys don't finish last. The people that follow nice guys finish last. Nice guys don't fight for other people. They fight for their own reputation. Nice guys seek middle ground. You know, nice people, in my opinion, don't have a lot of value. Kindness has a ton of value.
Yeah.
But you can be kind and absolutely monstrous in the same body and just control when you use it. I mean, for the sake of your kids, you don't want anyone to think, "Oh, you know, that guy's dad is a real nice guy. All right, well, maybe that puts my family at risk. They might take advantage, you know." I'm not saying be, you know, completely unhinged, but like people need to know that you have the ability to take action. And your friends need to know that you are somebody who will take action. And I mean, we don't like, I only have a few things I'm trying to accomplish in my life. And, you know, one is never make my family think they have to earn my love. No matter if I'm mad, doesn't mean that they think, well, I need to do something to earn dad's love again. I can be disappointed. They can do the stupidest thing in the world. And I don't want them going to their room and saying, well, I might have to go like make dad love me. No, I love you no matter what. I truly do. Number 2, I want to take whatever baggage I inherited from my parents, you know, and I just want to stop that before it gets to my son. And number 3, I want to be known as somebody who gives more than they take. That's it. That's it. And sometimes that's through being generous with money, and sometimes with time, and sometimes with emotion, and sometimes with risk. Like, I think, again, I'm not a, you know, PhD, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, but you are not a friend. You are not an ally if you do not put something at risk. You must risk your body. You must risk your money. You must risk your time and your emotions. You have to consecrate yourself in this life. Some people can't consecrate their bodies. A quadriplegic can't get in a fight and help you in a fight. And maybe they don't have any money because they spend it on all their health care. But even a quadriplegic can consecrate their emotions and their feelings to help somebody through something. For someone like me, there are times that I can consecrate my money at my own disadvantage, right? If you don't give enough money to where it actually puts your own finances at risk, you haven't given enough. You have to put your body in the way of things. You have to risk yourself. And if you're not taking risks with your own well-being, then I don't think you have that much purpose. Because I mean, what else is that? If you give you give money, but you stay rich. Okay, fine. You give time, but you can still be on the golf course for 5 hours a day. I don't know. That's probably not a lot of time. You sit with people and you hear them out, but you don't share anything about your own life that helps them see that they're not alone. I mean, you're kind of just a voyeur. And if you watch something happen and you're not willing to get your own nose bloodied, I don't know what value you have. So I'm not looking for fights. Actually, no, I do look for fights. I'm not always looking for physical fights, but in my life, I try to look for situations that need an ally. And then I try to do what I can to be an ally in that situation. That's it. And that's when I'm happy.
No, that's awesome. That's interesting how the conversation evolved from the nice guy into being somebody that's willing to sacrifice, to stand for something. And maybe there's a correlation there, or a connection there. Like, are the nice guys sort of like, oh, I'm just going to, stay out of this kind of thing?
Because they're looking out for number one themselves. They're looking out for their reputation. And I can say this as a former and recovering nice guy.
Right.
Sorry, I interrupted
you. No, that's okay. Well, I think this is naturally taking me to this other topic that you wanted to touch on too, which was this idea of danger. And I actually didn't see that article, so I'd love to hear what this one's about, because I'm maybe drawing some assumptions that might be connected with what you just shared. But tell me about what you shared about danger in safe spaces. I think that's what it was.
Well, let me lead up to it, just because I
remind me.
Yeah. What did I write about? This article, after it came out, I shared it, and
that's right. Okay.
And I was like, this is going to be canon for the Here Brotherhood, and here's why. I've struggled with the word safe spaces for a long time. It's become a politicized word. There's a lot of hoo-ha around it.
Yeah.
But it's the only way to really state what we're trying to do with the Here Brotherhood. And a lot of these spaces are trying to do is create a safe space where you can grow. And the way that you articulated what it means to have danger in safe spaces, it rung true for what we're doing. It rung true as a father in so many ways. And so anyway, please tell us a little bit more about what that means to have danger in safe spaces and why it's important.
Yeah. So now I remember why I wrote it. So I'm in sort of a, I don't know if you call it like a think tank of sorts, but trying to address a lot of racial disparities and inequities in society. And there was somebody in this group who we were discussing something, and I could detect that this person had some very problematic thinking, and anyways. And I decided, this person thinks this is a safe space. I'm going to make it dangerous. So I directly confronted them about something. I wasn't mean about it. And they got really upset. And they thought that I was being horrible. So I pressed a little bit more. And then they had a breakthrough. And what was interesting is the rest of the group thought I was out of line. And this person ended up saying, wait a second. No, I just had a breakthrough. He was right. I needed that. I was never going to say that. I was never going to acknowledge that. I was never going to do that until I was pressed. And then when you go back and look, because we record everything, people were like, I actually went and looked at it, like listened to it again. You actually were really nice. Like, you weren't rude at all. That's why I wrote that article. Mm-hmm. But there's this idea that we need to just create safe spaces for everybody. That's fine. There are places to have safe spaces, okay? We've taken in multiple teenagers who needed a safe space. They move in with us, they become part of the family, and our job is to make sure that they know that when they come home, it is a safe place. That does not mean that they don't have to act like a normal human. That doesn't mean that we're not going to press them to develop from adolescence into adulthood. You know, I haven't been to one of your retreats. I will come someday, but if I come to one of your retreats and all I hear is a bunch of dudes hugging each other, I'm going to look around and say, well, what's the point of this, guys?
Right.
No, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
So, like, what happens when a guy says that he's going through a tough time because he will not stop cheating on his wife? You guys just going to hug him?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You're going to press him.
No, you're going to hug him and say, okay, listen.
I hear you, but.
I hear you. And I don't think you're going to hell, and I don't think you're a terrible person. We're not kicking you out. But this is a brotherhood. We don't cheat on our spouses. Why are you doing this? You know, and obviously, you know, I'm not a psychotherapist, but like, I'm not just going to say, oh, you know, you beat your kids. Hey, it's okay, buddy. I'm going to say, well,
I hear you.
I'm going to say, all right,
no,
so
absolutely not.
You had a terrible childhood. I totally understand. But you know what? Don't expect to come here and not have other grown men demand that you get better.
Yeah.
But we're here in this group. There's no cops here. No one's going to arrest you. But we're not going to let you get away with thinking that this is okay. And this is just the way things are. So, I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but it's like you can't just provide to people safety. So, I hate sports analogies, but because they're too easy. And if they're too easy, they probably aren't that good. But like when I coach Little League baseball, I teach the kids part of baseball is you're going to get hit by a baseball. Number one, it's going to happen whether you like it or not. Number two, there's a way to safely get hit by a baseball when you're at bat. There's a simple technique you need to learn. The ball will hit you. You need to understand the difference between something hurting and being injured. So if the ball ever hits you, I will walk up to you and say, does it hurt? And you'll say, yes. And I'll say, of course it does. You just got hit by a baseball. Are you injured? What, coach? Are you injured? Are your bones broken? No. Okay. Let's go down to first base. I know it hurts. You can cry. Crying's okay. But you do have to run to second base at some point. Right? So how do I prepare the kids for that? Number one, I teach them when we start the season, I tell their parents, if something hurts your child, I'm not pulling them out of the game. If something injures your child, I will never put them in the game. I would never do that. So we must talk to each other about pain, hurt, and injury. Tell the kids, if you are injured, you have to tell Coach Mark. I would never, ever want you to be more injured. But if it just hurts, I know it hurts. Tell me whether or not it hurts in a way that you can't perform or whether you just need to take a breather. Then in practice, I hurt them. This sounds crazy. No, so what do I do when I throw batting practice? I've got my bag of baseballs and I have T-balls in there. They look like baseballs, but they're spongy. And I tell the kids, you have your helmet on, you know the technique of taking a pitch. I expect you to do it properly. Every 8 or 9 pitches, I dose them with a T-ball. One kid, Beckett Harris, Doug Harris's son.
Oh, yeah.
I love you, Doug. I love you, Beckett.
Doug
Point at you, boys.
Is that our son? Okay.
Yeah.
I hit Beckett twice in the nuts one practice. And he was like, coach. And I was like, that's your problem, Beckett. I told you to turn the other way. Don't face your torso towards the ball. But they were T-balls, Beckett, and you're wearing a cup and life is fine. No, but that's what I do. It's like, in practice, I'm going to create a scenario where you can fail. And I'm also going to surround you, though. The safety of that space is that I have a zero tolerance for any player making fun of each other. We support each other. We say, good job. We are proud of any time a player gets in front of a ball, even if they don't make a play. We celebrate every bit of effort. And then we create scenarios where they can fail. We hit balls a little bit harder. We hit them a little bit further away, make them dive. You have to create failure in practice. So then in games, you can say, guys, we've been through all of this. We've been through all of it. I know, it hurts. You just got to hit in the leg. Don't rub it, get on first base. Everything will be fine. Is your leg broken? No. Okay, get on first base. You can cry. You're going to be fine, but you got to go to second base. So we must, with our families, with our friends, with anybody we want to be an ally for, we have to be willing to create danger for ourselves, but we also have to be willing to create danger for others. And that danger just means that we can't let somebody go through something in a very controlled way where they only feel what they want to feel.
Yeah.
Or consequences are removed or whatever it may be. Yeah.
Right. So, I've had lots of friends or lots of men come to me and say, I'm thinking about getting a divorce. Okay. So one of the ways that I create just the slightest bit of danger is I say, I totally understand. Okay. Let's not even get into that, but let's just talk about something. So you're divorced. How many kids do you have? I have 4 kids. Okay, cool. What ages? Great. How many schools do you go to? We go to 3 different schools. Okay, cool. So you're divorced. Custody is all worked out and everything. Monday morning, you got the kids. What does life look like? What do you mean? No, just walk me through it. What does life look like? Well, I get up and I got to get the kids ready. Okay, what does that mean? Walk me through it step by step. I've got to get my toddler over here. I've got to get this kid with this, make sure they have homework, get their breakfast, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, then what? I'll have to get them in the car and get them to school. By what time? Well, I guess they go to school at 9. Okay, get them to school. What time are you supposed to be at work? I usually get there at 8. Oh, what time are you going to get there 9? Or now, after divorce? 9:30. Okay. So you got to deal with that. And I just walk them through. Okay, so now you've gotten done with all that. You've spent a week on your own. Then the next Monday rolls around. You wake up and your house is empty. Walk me through that. I'm just asking them to say, what is life actually going to be like? A lot of times they look at me and say, this sounds god awful. And I say, listen, dude, I'm not judging you. People get divorced. What I'm asking you to do is understand that there's a consequence. And let's start with the simplest of consequence. The simplest of consequence is you don't have anyone helping you with the kids. You can't be to work on time anymore. We can get into the worst consequences later.
Right.
But most guys go, I might want to reevaluate this. And I usually say, listen, unless your spouse, is your wife abusing the kids? No. Okay. You don't have to get divorced tomorrow. You don't have to do this tomorrow. You can do it next week. You can get divorced next month. You can get divorced next year. But until you have gone through that discussion where you literally map out the day in the life of me as a divorced guy with 4 kids, you might find that you would rather place that difficult effort in trying to work things out. I will not judge anybody if it doesn't work out, but I will judge them if they do things without even thinking of what the consequences will be. That's the simplest type of danger. It's just press people. What does it really mean, right? Are you going to quit? I understand you're going to quit. Your job, what does that mean? You don't like your boss? Okay, what does that mean? You can't get an interview? You think, you keep getting fired? What's the common denominator in all these things? What do you mean? What's the common denominator in you getting fired from the last 6 jobs? You got fired from the last 6 jobs.
Yeah.
No. So I had a friend, and I had this conversation with him. He goes, "Is it me?" I said, "Oh yeah, for sure." He's like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "No, it's you."
Well, why'd you ask if you didn't want the answer?
I said, "It's you." I said, "But when I say it's you, I'm just being honest." I said, "Your mistake is that you keep choosing the wrong position. You aren't doing bad work. You're doing amazing work, and I believe you that you're being treated this way. But it is you that you keep choosing to work for these monsters." I mean, he's a very high-paid person. He's in the kind of role that requires insane amounts of stress. I said, listen, it is you. It's going to happen again. If you don't want it to happen again, then we just have to have a different discussion. But if you want to make that money and be in this role, yeah, it's going to happen again. But don't blame it on that boss. You're the one that is going to choose to take this job again. And I support it completely. It's a lot of freaking money. And if you're smart with your money, you can be retired when you're 40 and you can do something that you love. I have no problem with that. But yeah, it's you. So you just have to be willing to press people, or what's the point? What's the point?
It reminds me of, I saw this quote a while ago that I thought was interesting. It was something along the lines of, staying married is hard, getting divorced is hard, choose your hard. Keeping your job is hard, quitting is hard, choose your hard.
Yeah,
true.
And to me, that was very insightful, just to because I think that's often the case. We're in a difficult situation. We think whatever that change is going to be the relief of that pressure, that stress, that pain that we're going through. And that idea of pain is pretty inevitable. And so to be able to embrace that and to be able to move through that and cope with that in healthy ways, to me, it's interesting how, you're talking about helping people get more comfortable with the idea of things hurting. And I think that happens in our lives.
It's essential to
it's
life.
Inevitable, right?
You have to learn to love it. So people started asking this question, what is your superpower at work? I don't have a superpower at work. I guess I can read a room pretty well. But my superpower in life is that if you tell me the pain I'm about to experience, I can take it. I have all these surgeries. I do a lot of them with anesthesia. They're wild. They literally, anyway, I don't want to gross you out. But it's about 15 minutes of intense, horrifying pain. And my doctors know, though, that if they calmly tell me we are about to do this, I can sit there and I can take it.
Jeez.
And it's god awful. Okay.
And
it's not that I don't feel the pain.
And you don't want to do a cold plunge?
Oh my gosh. I work really hard to have hot water in my house, guys. No, but like if you tell me I'm about to do this, it hurts, but I can endure the pain.
Hmm.
I think the problem that people have is if you as a friend aren't willing, like, by the way, anyone listening to this or you there on the camera, if you're divorced, I'm not judging you. If you're in a bad marriage, I'm not judging you. I'm simply asking whether or not you have had certain discussions with yourself, with a friend, where you've been asked about real things. Are you under the expectation that your life will not have pain? Yes. Okay.
Illusion. Yeah.
Insanity.
Yeah.
Are you under the impression that pain is always bad? Well, why would it be good? Okay, we need to talk about that. Okay, I'm making a list of all the conversations we need to have, because you're very immature if you think that life should be without pain. And
that pain is purposeless.
Yeah. Do you think that you could start a business with your best friend and over 60 years not have a major issue in the business? No. Okay. But you think you can do it with your wife. Okay. And you walk through these things. You're like, listen, I'm not saying that divorce isn't going to be the logical step. What I'm saying is most people who get divorced because they've fallen out of love will tell you that their life would have been much, much better if they never got divorced. Okay. If you're being abused, leave.
Yeah.
If your kids are being abused, kill them and, kill the person abusing them and leave. Right. But like, if you're just unhappy, hold on a second. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe you have an expectation. We could do an hour on expectations. Sure. Every single issue between humans in life, every single issue between humans is unknown expectations, unrealistic expectations, or unmet expectations. There isn't a single person who can come to me in their marriage and tell me a problem that they're having that I cannot pinpoint to one or more of those things. And that's one of the biggest problems, is that everyone has these expectations, but they don't tell the spouse what they expect.
Right.
They have expectations.
Because they should know it if they love them.
They should know it, right? I had a woman come to me one time and say, my husband's letting me down. We don't make enough money. I was like, oh, okay. I think he's a teacher, right? Yeah. Okay. What does he make? Like 75? Yeah. Okay. When you guys were dating, what did you say he was going to do for a living? I said he wanted to be a teacher. Oh,
that's interesting.
And he is? Yeah. Did you not know that they don't make that much money? Well, I mean, no, hold on a second. You're completely out of line on this issue. Now, you could bring up a lot of other stuff with your husband, but on this issue, this is your problem. You are being a bad wife right now because you're married to him. You're just being a bad human. No, you knew the expectation and you're expecting that it would just result in something different. That is 100% on you. Other people come to me and say, I thought we'd be doing better. Well, my husband, you see a lot of this in like young LDS dudes, like they all claim they're going to be rich and famous. My husband had me convinced that he was going to be extremely successful. I would never have to work. He told me he didn't want me to work. He didn't let me finish college. He didn't let me get a job. We've been married for 10 years. He doesn't make any money. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Your husband has not met your expectations. He made them known. Maybe they seem realistic and he just hasn't done well. That's okay. But anyways, it always comes down to somebody thinking that life is supposed to be different than it is, or they don't tell everyone else what they expect of them, or we just simply don't meet expectations. And that happens, but that doesn't mean that you don't quit because of that. You don't end a friendship because of that. You don't end a marriage because of that, unless that is so damaging that you need to distance yourself. But what I'm saying is that very few scenarios in life require us to completely disassociate ourselves with others. And to me, if you have to do that, it needs to be a very hard break. It needs to be full disassociation. Because I don't think you should let bad scenarios linger around you. If you think it's bad and you think that person can harm you, just get away from them. Too many people, they say, well, yeah, they are offensive and they can harm me, but they're in our friends group. Well, leave your friends group. Well, but stay.
See,
I'm sure it'll go well. I'm sure they'll never hurt you.
I wanted to touch on this expectation thing because there's a couple things that have happened recently that are just giving me a thought on this. So one thing I heard is that if you have an expectation, best case scenario is you're just merely satisfied with that expectation being fulfilled, as opposed to being delighted by something happening, right? Something maybe even beyond what that expectation may have been, but you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment or for satisfaction, but not really much beyond that, which I thought was an interesting concept. And the other thing, I was just doing a little bit of, I did a breathwork session the other night, and we were thinking about our intention going into it and something that we wanted to let go of. And I had this thought come to me while I was reflecting on this, like, I want to let go of me thinking things should be a certain way, because that is a source of a lot of frustration and I'd say unnecessary pain
The SH
in life.
word.
Should, all over, right?
I grew up, the SH word was shit.
Yeah.
Today, SH word is should.
Yeah.
Should
Totally.
is not a word that works out very well.
Yeah.
Totally. And so what's on the other side of that? Well, it's acceptance of things as they are. And that doesn't mean, though, being a nice guy, right? Like, I'm just going to, but it's like acceptance of truth. That's kind of where I came to. I was like, truth is things as they were, as they are, and as they are to come. And I think so much of the work that we do is just getting to truth, finding truth and living by truth, in truth. But it can be so hard to discern sometimes. And I think that's where so much of the work that I feel like I do is around trying to discern. Am I being a nice guy, or am I being kind? Am I allowing somebody to stay in my life that maybe I shouldn't? Am I allowing these influences or not? Should I have stood up and protected, or was I being a coward, And there's the should. It came out right there, right? And so I think the more that through just life experience, we gain that experience, we gain that perspective, that wisdom, that ability to discern between truth and error. And for me, that is like, when you talked about kind of what your life is all about, for me, that's one of the things that's resonating with me at this stage in life is like, am I living in truth, or am I living in deception or in a lie?
Do we have like 2 minutes for me to press you on this?
Yeah,
sure.
So
yeah, and then
the reason having a framework is so critical in life. I have several frameworks, but one of them is, do I feel offended? Did they try to offend me? Can they harm me? And then what do I do? Right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons that framework is so important is because frameworks let you practice. I actually do not believe that most of us have a hard time understanding truth from error, right from wrong. Most of us, as long as we are practicing, like evaluating decisions in life, I actually don't think we're choosing between right and wrong very often, or good and evil. I think we know that we shouldn't steal something.
Right.
We know we shouldn't, if you are struggling to determine between right and wrong, you have some pretty serious things you got to work through, because most of these things, if you get quizzed on them, you'll realize, okay, either I'm actually not choosing between truth and error, or this should be a very simple decision. I've had a longtime friend. That friend tried to harm one of my children. I'm struggling choosing between my friendship and my child. That's a you problem. That choice is very simple. Get rid of your friend, protect your child. That, from the outside, that's a very simple decision. I think maybe your listeners, maybe this will resonate with them, maybe it won't. But in life, the most difficult things we have to deal with is choosing between two good things or choosing between two bad things. And it seems to happen this way. You want to get a new job. You get a great job offer. If you have a job offer, your perfect job making $100,000 a year, same job making 200, how hard is it to choose? It's not. But what happens is you get the job that's offered 200 and it's a perfect scenario, except one or two little things. And then you get another offer out of nowhere. Some recruiter calls you and you're like, crap, now I have two options. That's when like you got to be a man. And by the way, when I say man, that does not mean to not be a woman. When I say be a man, it means don't be a boy.
Yeah. That's
a really big deal. Like we should have a podcast on when I say be a man, it is don't be a boy. That's when you have to really focus and say, okay, my gosh, this is the hard part of life. I have two potentially great options. Now I have to really do the work. And then other times it's, I have two really bad options. Now I have to really do the work. Truth and error, I don't think should be, I did it. If you have the right framework and you're being diligent, there should be less deciding truth from error and more just navigating the world as it is and deciding what world you want to create. Because at some point, you do have to accept the world that's in front of you and start to take action. If you look at the world that's in front of you and you think that it should be different and you don't take any action, that's when you fall into a deep depression. Not necessarily clinical chemical depression, but that is when you end up laying on the couch all day long and wondering what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? You might have clinical depression. You might need some help. I'm not discounting that at all. I've been medicated for 25 years. But sometimes you're not actually depressed. What you are is you are in a state of anxious, uncomfortable limbo because no one has been willing to say to you, listen, I've been there too. But your world is how it is. We have to put our boots on and we have to start taking action. We have to act upon life. Most men going through difficult times, they will acknowledge that life is acting upon them. It makes them feel weak and small and like a loser. The greatest thing you can do to stop feeling that way is to take one action today where you act upon your environment. Right? And so that's what I talk about what's like danger and safe spaces. If somebody calls me at 3:00 in the morning and says, I need you, I'm going to be there. And I might just sit with them the first time. When we were in Romania with the refugees, most of my time was either driving, digging, or I would just sit with people as they had PTSD. Couldn't speak their language, so I just sat with them. But if I'm talking to a friend who's going through a deep crisis, I'm sure I might sit with them a few times. But at some point, I become the problem. I need to say to that friend, okay, I validate this. This is real. You are going through a horrible situation right now. But we do have to do something.
Yeah.
We don't have to fix it today, but we have to start acting upon our environment. And if you don't do that, I don't know. I think you don't have much value as a human if you're not willing to lovingly press others into something that you know they can do. If you just let them wallow, I don't think there's much value to that.
Well, and I think that's one of the best ways you can say I love you without saying it, is by pressing them, by allowing them to feel that love. And I think on the other end, they recognize it, just like this one experience that you shared.
But sometimes they won't, and that is the risk you take. One of the risks you take to be an ally, an advocate, is they might reject you and you might lose that friend, and it hurts really, really bad.
Yeah.
My methods don't work with everybody.
Sure.
Right? I will lose friends sometimes. That is the risk I take. But I'm not a friend if I'm not willing to risk anything to help that person. Sometimes I have to risk money, help them out, time. But at some point, if I'm not willing to risk the friendship in and of itself, then what's the point?
Ooh, so good.
You are not a friend or an ally if you are not taking personal risk. You just aren't. So
interesting.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to cut you off. We probably are going to have to come back for part 2.
Wow.
Thank you for being on the podcast
Thanks for
today. I'm so excited for the listeners to hear, or the viewers. That's your cue to look into the camera. Thank you again for being here. I just want to honor you real fast for the work that you have done for so many people. Appreciate you for just who you are. And thank you for being a supporter of the Here Brotherhood from the beginning, almost the beginning.
Thank you for appreciating me.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to contribute.
Yeah.
And consecrate. And that just means, to me, what that means is you look at what you have in your life, you determine what you need for you and your family, and you give the rest away. Some of you have money, some of you have time, some of you have muscle. Every one of you has vulnerability and emotion. If that's the only thing you can do right now, then that's what you need to do. And if that's the only thing you are doing right now, you are doing as much as anybody who cuts a check or does these amazing things that people see in the media. If you are somebody who is willing to sit with a young man and tell him, I've been through that too, I will be here for you, and take action, you are doing everything that God wants you to do. So never discount, like none of your listeners should ever discount the efforts that they put in. As long as they can look in the mirror and say, I'm assessing what I need for myself and my family, financially, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, and everything extra I have, I am trying to find a way to consecrate and give that to the world, then you're doing an amazing job in the world. And it doesn't matter how it looks. It just matters that you're doing it.
Awesome.
Amen.
Love that.
Thank you.